Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're going deep on something pretty wild. Billionaires buying up farmland.
Yeah, you've sent over a really interesting mix of stuff here. News articles, YouTube videos, even some investment advice.
Right. It seems like you're trying to figure out if this is like the next big investment opportunity or a sign of the apocalypse.
Maybe a bit of both.
Or maybe a bit of both.
Exactly.
I think what's really fascinating about this topic is how it connects to some massive trends that are happening right now, like food security concerns, climate change, and of course the concentration of wealth and resources in the hands of a few.
Okay, so big picture stuff.
Big picture stuff for sure.
So let's break it down. Who are these farmland moguls? Why are they so obsessed with dirt? And what does it all mean for the rest of us?
Yeah, let's start with the who. It's pretty clear from your sources that the ultra-wealthy are snapping up farmland like it's going out of style.
And we're not talking about like your average millionaire next door. We're talking Bill Gates.
Yeah.
The guy who basically put a computer on every desk. He's now the biggest private farmland owner in the U.S. That's right over 242,000 acres. Think about that for a second.
That's basically like owning a chunk of land the size of New York City.
It's mind-boggling, and it's not just Gates. We're talking Jeff Bezos, Warren Buffett. They're all in on this farmland frenzy.
So what's the deal? Why farmland? It's not exactly the sexiest investment, right?
Well, based on what I'm seeing in your sources, it seems like a mix of wanting a safe place to park their money and maybe some more strategic plays, too.
Okay, so farmland as like a financial safe haven.
Exactly. Farmland has this reputation for holding its value even when the rest of the market is going crazy. It's seen as a good hedge against inflation, and it's a tangible asset. You can actually see it, touch it, unlike some digital currency.
Right. People got to eat no matter what's happening with the stock market.
Yeah.
But what about those strategic plays you mentioned?
Well, owning farmland isn't just about owning the dirt. It's about controlling the resources that come with it. Water rights, food production, even the development of new food technologies.
So you're saying it's like having a monopoly on the future of food.
It's a bit like that. One of your sources even pointed out that billionaires could potentially control the plant-based food industry just by controlling the supply of key ingredients. Kind of makes you think.
It does make you think. Okay, so maybe this is more than just a bunch of rich guys getting into farming. But what about the downsides? This can't be all good, right?
You're right to be skeptical. There are definitely some concerns here. For one thing, what does this mean for small family farms?
Yeah, if land prices are going up because billionaires are buying everything up, how can regular farmers even compete?
It's a valid concern.
Yeah.
And some of your sources suggest that this could lead to even more consolidation in agriculture. We could end up with a handful of mega farms dominating the food system.
That sounds a little dystopian. Is it really good for our food system if a few powerful entities control everything?
That's a big question.
Yeah.
And then there's the impact on rural communities. If these mega farms are just focused on profits, they might make decisions that hurt local economies.
Like one of the videos you sent over gave this chilling example. Imagine a corporation decides to leave thousands of acres of farmland fallow because it's more profitable than actually growing anything. That could devastate jobs and businesses in an entire region.
It's a scary thought, and it raises some big ethical questions, too. Should essential resources like food and water be controlled by a select few?
So we've got billionaires buying up farmland, maybe pushing out smaller farms, and potentially even shaping the future of what we eat. It's a lot to take in. What can be done about it?
Well, some of your sources suggest things like regulations to limit how much farmland one person or company can own. It's about putting some safeguards in place to prevent a monopoly on food production.
That makes sense.
Okay.
What about supporting local farms? Can we do anything as consumers to help?
Absolutely. Choosing to buy from local farmers is one of the most direct ways to support them and help them stay competitive. It's voting with your dollar, literally.
So this isn't just some abstract issue. It's something that affects all of us, from the food we eat to the communities we live in. Okay, I'm starting to see why you were interested in digging into this.
It's fascinating stuff. And speaking of digging, you also included some information about farmland investment. It seems like you're not just interested in the why, but also the how.
Yeah, I gotta admit, if billionaires are betting big on farmland, I'm at least a little curious about how the rest of us can get in on the action.
It's a smart approach. And the good news is that farmland investing isn't just for the super rich anymore.
Wait, really? I thought you needed millions to even think about getting involved in something like that.
Not necessarily. There are actually quite a few ways to invest in farmland without needing a billionaire's bank account.
Okay, I'm all ears. What are we talking about here?
Well, there are REITs. It's kind of like buying a tiny piece of a giant farm without having to deal with actually owning the land yourself. Then there are crowdfunding platforms. Think Kickstarter, but for agriculture.
So you're telling me I could potentially own a virtual cow? That's kind of cool.
And if you're feeling a little more adventurous, you could even form an LLC with some friends and invest in farmland together.
Okay, so there are options. But I'm guessing it's not as simple as picking a stock on Robinhood, right?
You're right. Farmland investing requires research, understanding the risks, and having a long-term mindset.
Got it. No get-rich-quick schemes here. But it is interesting to think that while we're talking about the implications of billionaires buying up all this land, there might be ways for everyday people to participate too.
That's a great point. This isn't just a spectator sport. Understanding these trends can empower you to make informed decisions about your own investments and how you want to be a part of the future of food and agriculture.
Well, I'm definitely feeling a lot more informed now. But before we move on to the next batch of sources, maybe we should address the elephant in the room. Is all of this billionaire farmland buying actually good or bad for the world?
That's the million-dollar question. And honestly, there's no easy answer. The sources you sent present a range of perspectives. Some people see it as a potential solution to food security and climate change, while others are worried about the concentration of power and the potential negative impacts on rural communities.
So it's not black and white. More like a whole spectrum of gray.
Exactly. And ultimately, it's up to each individual to weigh the evidence, consider the different perspectives, and form their own opinion.
Well, I'm definitely going to be thinking about this a lot more. But for now, let's shift gears a bit. You've also included some sources about a group of tech billionaires who are buying up land in Solano County, California. This seems to connect to our earlier discussion about farmland, but with a different angle.
Yeah, this one's interesting. They're not buying farmland to grow crops. It's something else entirely.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
It seems like these tech billionaires have their sights set on building a brand new city from scratch.
Wait, a whole city? Like with skyscrapers and everything? What are they playing SimCity in real life?
Pretty much. They're calling themselves California Forever, and they're quietly buying up tons of land in Solano County, California.
Quietly? Huh. That sounds a little shady. What's the deal with that?
Well, one of the videos you sent from More Perfect Union suggests that this secretive approach is causing a lot of anxiety among the locals.
I bet. Imagine finding out that a bunch of tech moguls are buying up your neighborhood with plans to build a futuristic metropolis.
Yeah.
That's got to be unsettling.
Especially when you consider the guy leading the charge. The video dives into the background of Jan Schremek, the CEO of California Forever. He's a former Goldman Sachs executive, remember them. And apparently his style isn't exactly winning hearts and minds in Solano County.
Yeah, the video mentioned he's been dropping Ayn Rand quotes talking about racing towards excellence. I'm not sure that's going to resonate with folks who value a more laid-back, community-oriented way of life.
It's a classic clash of cultures. Silicon Valley's move fast and break things, mentality colliding with the traditions of a more rural community.
And to make matters worse, Mark Andreessen, another big-name tech billionaire involved in the project, has been quoted saying things like, "Sustainability is a curse on society that's not going to win over any environmentalists."
It seems like they're not even trying to hide their libertarian leanings. And that's making a lot of people nervous.
Rightfully so. So what are the main concerns here?
Well, for starters, locals are worried about the sheer scale of this project. They're talking about a city that could eventually house 400,000 people.
Hold on. Solano County only has about 450,000 residents right now. That would basically double the population.
Exactly. It's a massive undertaking, and people are understandably worried about the impact on traffic water resources and the character of their communities.
Some of your sources even suggest that this is less about building a city and more about creating a kind of libertarian utopia. A city-state within California governed by their own rules and values.
It sounds like something out of a science fiction novel. But this is happening in the real world, and it raises some big questions about who gets to shape the future of our communities.
One quote from a local official really stuck with me. He said, "My fear is that a development like this, it's not being built for the people of Solano County, and we have to deal with the consequences."
That sums it up perfectly.
Hmm.
There's a sense that this project is being imposed on the community rather than being developed in partnership with them.
It's a stark reminder that even in a place like California, known for its innovation and progressive values, there are still power dynamics at play that can leave some communities feeling marginalized.
And this isn't just a local issue. If this project is successful, it could set a precedent for similar ventures in other parts of the country.
So it's like a test case for a new model of urban development driven by tech wealth and libertarian ideals.
Exactly. And it'll be fascinating to see how it all plays out.
Okay, so we've gone from billionaires buying up farmland to billionaires building their own cities. What's next? Are they going to start buying up islands and forming their own countries?
Well, you're not too far off. Your next batch of sources dives into the world of lithium mining, specifically a place called Thacker Pass in Nevada.
Lithium mining. At first glance, it doesn't seem to fit with the whole billionaire land grab theme we've been exploring.
But there is a connection. Remember how we talked about farmland being a way to control vital resources? Well, lithium is quickly becoming one of the most sought-after resources on the planet.
Why? Is it because of all the hype around electric vehicles?
You got it. Lithium is a key component in the batteries that power EVs, and as demand for electric cars skyrockets, so does the demand for lithium.
So instead of buying farmland, billionaires are now buying up lithium mines.
Not exactly. It's more complicated than that. One of the videos you sent from Morning Brew calls Thacker Pass the most important plot of land in America because of its massive lithium reserves. They're estimated to be worth trillions of dollars.
Trillions. That's an insane amount of money.
It is. And while billionaires aren't necessarily buying up the mines themselves, they're investing heavily in the companies that are racing to extract this valuable resource.
So it's a new kind of gold rush, but instead of gold, it's lithium that's driving the frenzy.
That's a good way to put it. And just like the original gold rush, it's creating a mix of opportunity and conflict.
What kind of conflict?
Well, the video highlights how local communities in Nevada are grappling with the potential environmental impacts of large-scale lithium mining. There are concerns about water usage, air pollution, and the disruption of fragile ecosystems.
That makes sense. Mining isn't exactly known for being environmentally friendly.
And it's not just about the environment. Thacker Pass is also sacred land for several indigenous tribes who are worried about the destruction of their cultural heritage and the potential desecration of their ancestral sites.
So it's another example of how the pursuit of valuable resources can clash with the interests of local communities and indigenous peoples.
Exactly. And it highlights the need for a more nuanced approach to the green energy transition.
What do you mean?
While we often think of the shift to renewable energy as a purely positive thing, which it is in many ways, but we also need to acknowledge that the production of things like electric car batteries relies on mining, which comes with its own set of environmental and social challenges.
So it's not as simple as just swapping out gas guzzlers for EVs. There's a whole chain of impacts to consider.
Right. And it's important to have these conversations and make sure that the benefits of the green energy transition are shared equitably without disproportionately impacting communities that are already marginalized.
I'm starting to see a pattern here. Whether it's farmland city building or lithium mining, there's always a bigger picture to consider, right?
Absolutely. And speaking of the bigger picture, your research also delves into how the very nature of work is changing and how billionaires are playing a role in shaping this new landscape.
Yeah, you're talking about the whole gig economy thing, right? I sent over a video from How Money Works that really breaks it down.
That's the one. It paints a pretty fascinating, if somewhat unsettling, picture of the future of work.
It kind of feels like the old rules of work are being ripped up and rewritten right in front of us.
Exactly. The video highlights how the traditional 9-to-5 job with its predictable salary and benefits is becoming less and less common.
More and more people are working as freelancers, independent contractors, or gig workers. It's like the whole workforce is becoming Uberized.
That's a good analogy. And while this shift offers flexibility and opportunities for some, it also creates a lot of uncertainty and insecurity for others.
The video points out that we're essentially creating a two-tiered workforce. Those who thrive in this new gig economy and those who get left behind.
And guess who's often at the forefront of this shift?
Let me guess, tech companies and billionaires.
Bingo. They're the ones building the platforms and algorithms that are reshaping the way we work, often without much regard for the social consequences.
The video uses the example of Airbnb. It started as a way for people to rent out their spare rooms, but it's now a global giant that's disrupting the hotel industry and impacting housing affordability in cities around the world.
And it's not just Airbnb. We're seeing similar trends in transportation, food delivery, even healthcare.
It's like every industry is being disrupted by tech, and it's not always clear if it's for the better.
That's the key question, isn't it? How do we navigate this technological revolution in a way that benefits everyone, not just a select few?
The video also raises another important point, the impact on the American dream. The traditional idea of working hard, buying a house, and retiring comfortably seems increasingly out of reach for many, especially younger generations.
The costs of housing, education, and healthcare are rising faster than wages, leaving many people feeling like they're on a financial treadmill, running and running, but never getting ahead.
And who's benefiting from this? You guessed it, the billionaires. They're the ones who could afford to buy multiple homes, send their kids to elite schools, and access the best healthcare.
It's a classic example of how economic inequality can exacerbate social problems.
This whole deep dive has been a real eye-opener. We've gone from farmland to city building to lithium mining to the future of work. It's like peeling back the layers of a complex onion.
And we're not done yet. You also included some sources about the influence of certain families, specifically Jewish American families, on the American economy and culture.
Yeah, I'm curious about this one. It seems like a bit of a departure from the previous topics.
It is, but it also connects to some of the broader themes we've been discussing. Remember how we talked about the concentration of wealth and power? Well, these families with names like Goldman Sachs, Pritzker, and Fisher have played a significant role in shaping American business and society.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
It's fascinating to explore how these families who started as immigrants built empires that touch so many aspects of our lives.
Yeah, these aren't just names on a Forbes list. We're talking about the people who built iconic businesses, shaped industries, and left their mark on everything from finance to real estate to fashion.
You sent over some YouTube videos that really dive deep into their stories. For instance, the one about the Goldman Sachs family traces their journey from 19th century Bavaria to the pinnacles of Wall Street. It's a classic American dream story, starting with nothing and building a dynasty through hard work, ambition, and, let's be honest, a bit of luck.
And it's not just about the money, right? They've had a hand in shaping some major historical events. I mean, they own Rockefeller Center, that's a landmark, and they've been involved in some of the biggest financial deals of our time.
It's hard to imagine the American economy without the influence of the Goldman Sachs family. And then there's the Pritzkers. Their story is intertwined with the history of Chicago. They built their fortune through a really diverse range of businesses, hotels, manufacturing, real estate, you name it.
It's like they had their fingers in every pie.
Yeah.
And they were also really active in Chicago's civic and philanthropic scene.
One thing that stood out to me from the video is that one of the Pritzker family members, J.B. Pritzker, is actually the current governor of Illinois.
Wow, so they've gone from business tycoons to political power players. That's quite a trajectory.
It speaks to the influence these families have been able to cultivate over generations. And then there's the Fishers, the folks behind the Gap. Their story shows how a simple idea selling jeans can turn into a global retail empire if you've got the right combination of vision, business savvy, and a bit of that entrepreneurial magic.
And like the other families we've talked about, the Fishers have also been big on philanthropy, especially in the arts. Doris Fisher, the wife of one of the founders, is a major art collector.
It's interesting to see how these families, while building massive fortunes, have also used their wealth to give back to society in various ways.
So it's not just about accumulating wealth, it's also about leaving a legacy.
Exactly. And it's not just about these specific families. I think their stories speak to a larger theme, the impact of immigrants on the American economy and culture.
That's a great point. America has always been a melting pot of cultures and ideas, and these families' journeys highlight how immigrants have contributed to the fabric of American society.
It's a reminder that behind every big business, every skyscraper, every iconic brand, there are human stories, family legacies, and a desire to make a lasting impact.
Well, I feel like we've really gone deep on this one. We've covered a lot of ground. From billionaires buying up farmland to building their own cities to the shifting landscape of work and the influence of these powerful families. It's been a whirlwind tour of wealth power and the forces that shape our world.
It's been an insightful journey, and I think it's important to remember that these aren't just abstract concepts. They have real-world consequences for all of us.
Absolutely. This deep dive has definitely given me a lot to think about, and I'm sure it's done the same for you listening out there.
It's been a thought-provoking exploration of the forces shaping our world.
I feel like I've learned so much. But before we wrap things up, I wanted to circle back to something you said earlier. You mentioned that these trends have real-world consequences for all of us. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. Think about the farmland situation. If a handful of individuals control a significant portion of our food production, it could impact food prices, access to healthy options, and even the livelihoods of farmers in rural communities.
That's a sobering thought. It makes you realize that these aren't just abstract economic trends. They have a direct impact on people's lives.
Exactly. And it's the same with the whole future of work thing. The shift towards the gig economy might offer flexibility and opportunity for some, but it also creates a lot of uncertainty and precarity for others.
It feels like we're at a crossroads.
Yeah.
We can either embrace these changes in a way that benefits everyone, or we can end up with a society where the gap between the haves and the have-nots continues to widen.
It's a critical moment, and it's up to all of us to engage in these conversations, make informed choices, and advocate for policies that create a more equitable and sustainable future.
So what can we do? It feels like these are such massive forces at play. Can individuals really make a difference?
Absolutely. It starts with awareness. By understanding these trends and their implications, we can become more conscious consumers, more engaged citizens, and more informed investors.
So knowledge is power.
In a way, yes. When we're informed, we can make better choices about where we spend our money, who we support politically, and how we want to shape the world around us.
That's empowering. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the complexity of these issues, but you're right, even small actions can make a difference.
I would encourage you and everyone listening to continue exploring these topics. The sources you've shared are just a starting point. There's a wealth of information out there, books, articles, documentaries, podcasts, and the more we learn, the better equipped we'll be to navigate this complex world.
Well said. This deep dive has definitely sparked my curiosity, and I'm feeling inspired to learn more.
That's the goal. Remember, the world is constantly changing, and it's up to us to stay informed, engaged, and empowered to make a positive impact.
Thanks for guiding me through this complex landscape. It's been a real pleasure.
The pleasure was all mine. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning. It's fascinating to explore how these families who started as immigrants built empires that touch so many aspects of our lives.
Yeah, these aren't just names on a Forbes list. We're talking about the people who built iconic businesses, shaped industries, and left their mark on everything from finance to real estate to fashion.
You sent over some YouTube videos that really dive deep into their stories. For instance, the one about the Goldman Sachs family traces their journey from 19th century Bavaria to the pinnacles of Wall Street. It's a classic American dream story, starting with nothing and building a dynasty through hard work, ambition, and, let's be honest, a bit of luck.
And it's not just about the money, right? They've had a hand in shaping some major historical events. I mean, they own Rockefeller Center. That's a landmark. And they've been involved in some of the biggest financial deals of our time.
It's hard to imagine the American economy without the influence of the Goldman Sachs family. And then there's the Pritzkers. Their story is intertwined with the history of Chicago. They built their fortune through a really diverse range of businesses, hotels, manufacturing, real estate, you name it.
It's like they had their fingers in every pie.
Yeah.
And they were also really active in Chicago's civic and philanthropic scene.
One thing that stood out to me from the video is that one of the Pritzker family members, J.B. Pritzker, is actually the current governor of Illinois.
Wow, so they've gone from business tycoons to political power players. That's quite a trajectory.
It speaks to the influence these families have been able to cultivate over generations. And then there's the Fishers, the folks behind the Gap. Their story shows how a simple idea selling jeans can turn into a global retail empire if you've got the right combination of vision, business savvy, and a bit of that entrepreneurial magic.
And like the other families we've talked about, the Fishers have also been big on philanthropy, especially in the arts. Doris Fisher, the wife of one of the founders, is a major art collector.
It's interesting to see how these families, while building massive fortunes, have also used their wealth to give back to society in various ways.
So it's not just about accumulating wealth, it's also about leaving a legacy.
Exactly. And it's not just about these specific families. I think their stories speak to a larger theme, the impact of immigrants on the American economy and culture.
That's a great point. America's always been a melting pot of cultures and ideas, and these families' journeys highlight how immigrants have contributed to the fabric of American society.
It's a reminder that behind every big business, every skyscraper, every iconic brand, there are human stories, family legacies, and a desire to make a lasting impact.
Well, I feel like we've really gone deep on this one. We've covered a lot of ground, from billionaires buying up farmland to building their own cities, to the shifting landscape of work, to the influence of these powerful families. It's been a whirlwind tour of wealth, power, and the forces that shape our world.
It's been an insightful journey, and I think it's important to remember that these aren't just abstract concepts. They have real-world consequences for all of us.
Absolutely. This deep dive has definitely given me a lot to think about, and I'm sure it's done the same for you listening out there.
It's given us all a lot to consider.
I feel like we barely scratched the surface. But before we wrap things up, I wanted to go back to something you said earlier. You mentioned that these trends we've been discussing have real-world consequences for everyone. What did you mean by that?
Well, think about the farmland issue. If a small group of people end up controlling most of our food production, it could have a huge impact. We're talking about food prices, access to healthy food, even the livelihoods of farmers in rural communities.
It's kind of scary when you put it like that. These aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. We're talking about real people's lives.
Exactly. And it's the same with the future of work. The gig economy might be great for some people, but for others it means less security, fewer benefits, and a constant struggle to make ends meet.
It feels like we're at a turning point. We can either figure out how to make these changes work for everyone, or we risk creating a society where the rich get richer and everyone else falls further behind.
It's a critical moment. We need to be having these conversations, making informed choices, and pushing for policies that create a more fair and sustainable future.
So what can we do? It feels like these are such huge issues. Can regular people really make a difference?
Absolutely. It all starts with awareness. The more we understand these trends and their potential impact, the better choices we can make as consumers, as voters, as investors.
So knowledge is power.
I think so. When we're informed, we can make better decisions about where we spend our money, who we support, and how we want to shape the world around us.
That's actually pretty inspiring. It's easy to get overwhelmed by all of this.
Right.
But you're right. Even small actions can add up.
I'd encourage you and everyone listening to keep learning about these topics. The sources you shared are just a starting point. There are so many resources out there, books, articles, documentaries, other podcasts. The more we learn, the better equipped we'll be to deal with this complex world.
Well said. I know I'm definitely going to keep digging into all of this. Thanks for being such a great guide. It's been a really thought-provoking conversation.
It's been my pleasure. And to everyone listening, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep learning.